What was your vision when you decided to start this?
I started the vision of I started to do it locally.
Okay.
And when we started to do it locally, we got great ground. And then what happened is, I'm involved in a lot of mastermind groups,
Yeah.
and there was a lot of, hey, what else? How are you getting? What's the main source of listings, and how are you meeting homeowners? And I said, it's funny. I'm doing workshops to educate people on how to do estate planning.
Yeah.
And then other real estate agents like, really, is there any? And I said, yeah, you'll be surprised how many people own multiple homes.
Hmm.
They're not protected. And then when they put them into the estate plan, they they say, you know what, I want to sell one, or I want to be able to acquire another one, or I want to move this property because they're the tenants from hell. How do I get rid of them? But and then so that's how we actually started to do that. And then real estate agents started saying, "Hey, can you get that software approved in my state?" And then before you knew it, we got the software compliant from all 50 states.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then we came back and get into, then they started saying, well, how do we market it? And then that it just started to go on. And I got into this crusade to bring awareness nationwide, for the simple fact that 68% of homeowners do not have an estate plan, and they're going to go to probate. Probate is something of one of the most awful things that you could um, do, because or go through, because of all the things that happen. I mean, there's five things. I mean, there's probably, you know, I always tell people when they come to the workshop that I want to think about it, I give them a homework assignment. And the homework assignment I give them is, go talk to your friends, families, and loved ones about if they know anybody that went through probate. And
Yeah.
then call me back, let me know what they say.
Yeah.
And then they come back like, man, I need one of those. I need an estate plan. I need a living trust to protect my family. I don't want my family to go through that.
Yeah. Yeah. And
'Cause-
it's a challenge. It's such a challenge, and it just pops up, right? And most of the time, if you and then correct me if I'm wrong, most of the time you don't know what you don't know until something happens.
right. And that's what makes it even more trouble. Like, I'll give you an example. I'll give you a couple of things of what happens in probate in California. Every state is different, but in California, the first thing that, as an agent, the last thing you want to hear is, one, that one of your customers passed, but their
Mhm.
kids come to you and they say, "Hey, you know what? You're the fam." They always hear your name, or
Yeah.
whatever, calling, talking about that I'm the guy to go to, and they come and they say, "You know what? We wanted to refinance the house. We couldn't refinance because we don't have title. They want us to go to probate. We talked to an attorney, and the attorney says, Oscar, it's $50,000, but don't worry. You don't have to pay me right now. You can pay me when you sell the house." And like, we don't want to sell the house. This is our family home.
Yeah.
How do we get around that? And I said, well, one, you have to agree to it. Two, we have to ask them for 6 to 12 months to pay them,
Yeah.
so that way we can try to refinance, or we're going to have to sell the house. So
Yeah.
that's the first thing, that your kids may be forced, if you don't have a living trust or a comprehensive estate plan, they may have to sell the house to pay for probate. That's the first thing. The
Okay.
second thing that happens is that in probate, they publish, it becomes public record, and
Mhm.
that is prone to scammers.
Yep.
That means, because it basically says this: if you are a if you think that you Oscar owes you money and he just passed, here's all of his assets, here's his house, here's how much he had in equity. If you think he owes you money, come forward. And if you think you're a benefit, and you deserve part of his inheritance, come forward and file a claim. Now,
Yeah.
that's something that can happen in courts. Now, that's just the second thing. The third thing that happens in probate is that the court which is a judge, which is human, which makes the final decision on your assets. So the government has, and I call the government our court system. It's there to protect us. However, they are human and they make the final decision on your assets.
Yeah.
So imagine that. Not only one, they have to pay an absorbent amount of fees.
Mhm.
Two, it becomes public, so they're prone. Like I don't know about everybody else's kids, but my kids are a little naive on what happens in this world. They believe everything on TikTok. No, just kidding. I always give them like I said, I saw it on TikTok, so that means it's true. But anyways, um, they're naive, so they're prone to scammers.
Yes.
And then the third thing is that the judge makes the final decision on what happens to your asset. But wait, it gets even worse. They have to wait anywhere from 18 to 24 months to get their money or to get access to settle the estate.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, they may be prone to tax consequences. So
Mhm.
those are just the top 5 things that can happen if you don't have an estate plan.
Yeah.
So that is just amazing that 68% of people, and it came to me as as a as I say, I got to do, how do I bring awareness? And I said, I'm going to get on podcasts. I'm going to see if who would participate on bringing awareness to protect people's homes
Mhm.
from scammers and high cost of legal fees.
Yeah, yeah. And it's happening. It's so interesting that you say this, Oscar, because I just had to let I wouldn't say myself and my client had to part because they later found out that they weren't on the deed after their loved one passed away. And I was like, "Oh my goodness." So of course now they're having to go into probate, but the challenge is when this does happen, that family has a likelihood of losing that home by it going into foreclosure because they're not knowing all these things. And so as I had this discussion with this individual, it's sad because of the simple fact as I mentioned earlier, you don't know what you don't know. So what's one of the biggest misconceptions that people have about estate planning?
I could tell you there's several of them, and the biggest one of the biggest misconception is that they have to um become so um give me one second. What the biggest misconception that people have of estate planning is, I think there's three.
Okay.
One one is that they are they think they have to be wealthy. And
Mm,
the misconception of saying, because estate planning is always like, oh, trust fund babies and this, but we're here to tell people that if you own a home, you're considered wealthy in this
mhm,
country,
mhm.
right? Because because of that. That's the first misconception, that you have to be wealthy. Everybody has an estate plan. Everybody has an estate plan. And that means that um when we're in an estate, when we have everybody has an estate plan because we all own things,
Mhm.
and we all have that. That's the first misconception. The second misconception that people have is that a will is enough.
Mm,
And that's mostly on the East Coast, by the way.
okay.
People in California, we're we know because we communicate with each other quite a bit. Um, and it's impossible to not tell people, or not, like, when somebody knows they're gonna do something, they know that they tell people right
Yeah,
here,
yeah.
and we communicate, and the word goes by really fast about what happened at court and all these things. So the word goes like, wow, we really need one. But even then, I think those are probably the two biggest misconceptions, that a living trust does protect it, and that it's for the wealthy, and a will's enough.
Okay. And with that, with those two misconceptions, as you mentioned, you stated that people often believe that they have to be wealthy and then that a will is enough. What's the most common mistakes that they make when they actually begin this process?
The most common mistake that they do is they don't take advantage of all the things that a will or a living trust has to offer.
Okay.
Like we always in our workshops, everybody's most aha moments is that the understanding of a living trust is a contract or an agreement between the kids or the adult, the parent, which is the grantor, and the beneficiary, the kids. And it's a it's agreement, and the agreement basically is the instructions you leave your kids for when you pass.
Yes.
And the mistake that most people make is that they don't make it comprehensive. And what I mean by that is they just say, we give you everything.
Power.
And they just transfer it. Now, I think that there's things that you can put on there. I'll give you an example. If you know that they're married to a toxic wife or a um not good looking, non hardworking husband,
Yeah.
right? I always say that because I always tell my wife, I always get her to say, "Aren't you glad you got married to a ugly, hardworking guy?" But that and I think that that's a mistake because I think that you can leave it in the trust.
Mhm.
That's one. The second thing I think that they do is they don't educate the beneficiaries on the trust,
Mm.
because they don't tell them, hey, listen, don't take the house out of the trust. There's could be reassessments, there could be taxes, there could be a lot of things that can happen. Leave it in the trust, because if it's in the trust and your child or your, well, now young adult or adult gets a divorce, they don't get access to it because you don't own it.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And
Uh,
that's a huge mistake.
so when you mentioned they don't make it comprehensive enough, what that brings to my mind is they're not very specific about what they're giving. All doesn't necessarily mean everything. So are you saying to mention the house on, you know, Turkey Circle Way or the house, in California, the house in Texas? So are you saying they're
Yeah.
not being more specific enough about what they're giving
No,
to the
I
children?
was thinking about the instructions because the limitations of the instructions that you can leave your kids in your living trust are only limited to the imagination of the instructions you're willing to give.
Okay. Okay.
And what I mean by that is, you know what, if you sell the house, leave a portion, leave it in the leave some of the
Okay.
proceeds in the trust for your kids so they can have some type of inheritance.
Okay.
Um, just because the money is tax free, don't spend it all,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Leave some for a rainy day. Put some of that away.
Yes.
Don't use that. And I think that, and that's just my thought, but
Yes.
most people like when we talk to people and they have a living trust, one of the things that they don't do is update it quite often because the
Yes.
average attorney charges $2,000 to do an update. It's cost 6,000 to create it,
Yeah.
and then it costs $2,000 to update it. With
Mm,
our software, you have an unlimited updates for the rest of your life. All
okay.
you got to do is pay the 129 a year, the year that you update it. If you
Okay.
don't, you just cancel, and then you just don't pay it. And then when you want an update, then you can reassign it, right?
Okay. Yes, and that makes a lot of sense. And it not being updated and the will being outdated when something happens 20 to 30 years later. So that makes it just helps people that are listening to this is that it does change. One day things may be the same. Also, not to mention if you get divorced, it's going to need to change. You know what I mean? There's so many things in life that has to happen, but
Right.
a lot of people don't realize that.
Yeah, and one of the things that most people, and I always tell them, just put it in there now. And they, when she gets married, we'll see what happens. And I say, one of the things that most people don't realize, that you could exclude your son-in-law or your daughter-in-law from
Mm,
the inheritance and have it go straight to your grandkids. And
mm.
in case your child surpasses you, goes to heaven before you, I mean, we
Yes.
all hope we go there, but if he passes before you, um, he doesn't get all of your assets if you die.
Yeah.
They stay in the trust, and then they surpass him or her and go to your grandkids. And
Ah,
that is probably, and most people don't realize that when they're creating their trust. So those are that's what I mean by comprehensive, a
yeah.
really thought out trust.
Mm,
And then I always tell people, and here's the thing that I tell people, with our software, because it does all these things.
yeah.
One of the things that is super impressive is that most people get updates and they say, "Oh, I see, you should just review it once every 2 years, every 3 years." But we're finding that more people are updating it yearly, and they're adding
Mhm.
provisions, and they say, "Hey, I want this to happen. I want this." They're making it such a comprehensive trust where it's going to affect the legacy and for generations to come.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
that is what the trust should be for, is to protect your family and to be able to affect the legacy. Because there's a saying that says, you know we're sitting in the shade today because somebody planted a tree yesterday,
Yes. Yes.
right? Or many yesterdays ago, right? A
Yes.
100 years ago, but we're still benefiting from that tree today. And
Absolutely.
that's the same way that I feel that a living trust should be on there. And I think that's probably, I don't think it's a mistake. I
Yes.
just think they don't know,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's like the homeowner that don't have a trust. It
Mhm.
just, they don't know. I mean, when I was really, I mean, I would say 95% of my current real estate clients have a trust.
Yeah.
If they don't get it today, is because they're not there economically to be. I mean, our retail cost, our living trust for lifetime access is only 24.97,
Okay.
but we give our clients a discount, and we give them discounts to be able to make it more affordable. We give them payments plans, but some of them, they just, I deal a lot with educators, and I remember Miss Sharon. Miss Sharon says, "Them damn kids, they don't even visit me. I'm gonna make them pay for probate. So they can remember me." And I'm like, "Well, that's a good way to think about it." So visit your mother. Visit your mother.
Yes.
She's gonna make you go to probate.
Absolutely. And it's so good to have this conversation and allow the audience to hear this. As I mentioned, I hear it a lot. You've heard it a lot. And even though I must say, Oscar, even though you might have a home now and you never thought about it, it's now time to think about it because, time is just passing by so fast and tomorrow isn't promised. You either want to leave your children and your family with a debt, or you want to leave them with an asset that they could choose to grow on. So, Oscar, I truly appreciate this. And you did say this was in all 50 states. Is that correct?
In all 50 states, yeah, we work with a lot. And I want to mention one more thing.
Yes.
A living trust is also known to help business owners create the legacies, so they're not forced to sell their business.
Yes.
Because when you have a living trust, you could literally, when you start to think about standard operating procedures, you start to think about what's going to happen when I pass, what do I want to have happen with the business.
Yes.
And most people, I'll give you, and I like using the bakery story of Mr. Pedro. He had a bakery. He started to write SOPs. He couldn't write them, so I told him, just put a camera up and talk to the kids through the
Yeah.
camera, and they'll get it. And they're like, damn, they're never gonna do nothing. Check this out. He left them. So he ended up wanting. He said, "Well, I want to be able to. How do I protect the kids? Because I know they're not going to want to do the business, but I want the bakery to continue to provide for them." So we got what's called key person insurance. Um,
Mm,
for him in his business. It was about 1.5 million. He did all these SOPs and he did, I don't know, I think it was a total like of 300 videos over 2 years or something like that of instructions to the kids. When they got the insurance policy, the trust said this money was only to be used for the business, either to hire somebody, or to keep the business running. That's it. They couldn't benefit personally from it.
Okay.
They now have a factory bakery, and they have about 17 delivery trucks throughout Los Angeles. Because of the money, they all decided that, you know what, this is what grandpa, because they started to see the videos of how passionate he was, what he did, how he really liked it. And I haven't seen all the videos, but they could say that, you know what, that really inspired them. They really didn't see that part of the business.
Yeah.
And in his memory, they grew the bakery to where it's at today.
Yeah.
You know, which is amazing. Imagine having your business. You have a small business you're working at, and then all of a sudden your kids come in, they pour some water on it, they use social media, they blow it up, and then like you're in the grave, like going, "Why didn't you do that when I was alive?"
Yes. And I love that. I've never, even thought about anything like that. And so this is not just for homeowners. This is for business owners. This is
Yeah, anybody that has an asset, it's that I would say in the simplest terms, a living trust is the only document that is the easiest way to transfer assets and leave specific detailed instructions on what you want to have done with those assets.
Makes all the sense in the world. In lieu of your time or respect of your time, please do me a favor. Let everyone know, the audience that will be watching, where they can go to find this information at, even though it's there. Also, any social media handles or any podcasts that
I'm going to give you estateDocPrep.com/guide. Want everybody to download this guide. estateDocPrep.guide is a comprehensive guide that eliminates the human element of delay before you create your trust, because there's a human element of delay.
Okay.
The second thing that we have is we also have a discount code for the first 10 listeners that use Vision as your discount code, and you'll save $1,000 off of the estate planning software for life by using Vision Pro.
Okay.
So, and that'll give you that, and that'll give you a checkout at $14.95 that gives it to them at cost. For the first 10 customers, we'll be able to provide that. So, and with that said, you can just visit us at Estate Doc Prep. There's also a phone number. We have an artificial intelligence in the artificial intelligence phone number. If people have it, let me get that for you. It's 805-909-4689. Her name is Lisa, and she always picks up, never takes breaks, and she's there to answer any and all questions that you have about estate planning. And at the end, she'll ask you if you want to book a call with a human or if you want to speak to a human. So no pressure. Get the information, get educated, and remember that tomorrow's not promised. Yesterday's too late. And today is the day to protect your family, because if you knew for sure that probate cost was going to be higher tomorrow, and creating an estate plan will also be higher. 10 years ago was $600.
Yes.
Now it's $6,000. So take action.
Thank you for being here today. I'm really happy that you tuned in to Vision Pros Live. I'm looking forward to seeing your reactions as these episodes continue to move forward. This is going to get more and more fun. We'll have more and more engagement as well. We'll invite people to participate in the show. And thank you for giving us your time and attention. Have an excellent time building out your vision and becoming a Vision Pro yourself.